If you look around, you'll see the world can be pretty smart. Okay, very smart. At Capella University, we think education should be smart too. That's why we're reshaping online learning with our FlexPath format. You can set your own deadlines, take classes at your own pace, even leverage your previous experience to move faster. So when it comes to earning your bachelor's degree, you know what kind of choice to make. A smart one. Visit capella.edu to learn more. Capella University. Don't just learn smarter.
Welcome guys to yet another episode. We've had 3 races done and there's a bit of a gap before the 4th race happens. On this episode, I have a very special guest by the name of William Ponissi. He currently works with Alfa Romeo, but I've known him several years ago, since we worked back in time with what you guys know as the Force India Formula One team. And, I've been calling him Will P because there used to be 2 Williams in the marketing team back then. So I'm going to just stick to calling you Will P. Hi, Will P. It's great to have you.
Hi, Kunal. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
It's been a great start to the season. And, hats off to all you guys and Formula One specifically, all the stakeholders for pulling off, a race despite the ongoing pandemic. And I assume you must have been tested several times over by now. How is the whole COVID testing going for you?
Well, let's just say it's not my favorite part of the race weekend. It's not painful per se, but it's pretty annoying, and it's not the best experience. Yeah, I wouldn't do it for fun. It's a small price to pay when you consider that we're finally able to bring the sport back. If you had told us like in April or so during the break, we really wouldn't have known when we'd be able to go racing again. And now, the season is in full swing and, we're racing. We're finally again talking about cars on track rather than all the things that are preventing us from racing. So it's good to be back.
Yes, it's good to be back, and it's great to have you because, over all these years that, I've been hosting the podcast, we get a lot of questions of how it's to actually work in Formula One, how it's to work with the Formula One team. And, I'm going to use this opportunity to ask you all these educational questions. But, there are 2 questions that we should just start off with. The first thing is, what do you actually do at Alfa Romeo? So I know that very well, but it would be great for you to explain it to our listeners as well.
Well, basically, I'm the senior communication manager. That's my official title. And what that means in practice is that together with my colleagues, we're running the whole media office for the team and for the company at large, because obviously back in Sauber, the organization that runs the Alfa Romeo Racing ORLEN team, we have a lot more than just the racing. We've got engineering and aerodynamics and a lot of more activities. But Formula One wise, basically what I'm taking care of is making sure that all the media requests are collected, taken into account, and then we organize the media schedules for the driver at the race, the communication for the team, all the press releases going out. They all come through our office. We work very closely with both the racing side, the drivers, team management, engineers to get that kind of information. But we also work very closely with the rest of the company, those who are dealing with our partners, those who are dealing with our customers, in making sure that all the right information goes out and gets disseminated in the most effective way possible. It's a busy job. It keeps me very occupied, both when we're back at the factory and when we're trackside. But it's good fun.
Yeah, and the minute you say you work in media, and the fact that we know that Kimi Raikkonen is one of your drivers for 2020, as we all know, and, much as we hope that he's around in 2021 as well, one of the main questions that came across was, how is it to work with Kimi Raikkonen, especially on the media side of the team?
It's actually, and this may sound surprising, but it's extremely easy. Kimi is an incredible professional, and I've been working on Formula One for so long before I actually got to work with him. I was always looking up to him, looking at the way he did things, and it's the sort of professional you always want to work with, because he's got charisma, he's got so much experience, and even in this work with the media, you can see that he's been around the block quite a few times. He's such a experienced driver. It's well known that is not the favorite part of his race weekend, working with the media, but at the same time, he's extremely professional, and he'll do what is best for the team, which is all that we can ask a driver. It's just great to work with him, and I think sometimes he's very outspoken, which is a great advantage, and is something that is incredible for drivers nowadays. But he does so always with a aim of improving things, and he will just say things as they are, which is again is something we can just give him credit for.
Yeah, I pretty much love attending all his media sessions, and I can tell you, given that I've probably attended sessions with all the teams, the ones that are most popular are the ones with Kimi. And, I've seen it from this side of the mic, but, any specific anecdotal experiences, any fun moments that, you've had with Kimi that you could actually share with us, and we could probably have some more laughs?
Well, I think some of the most, the biggest, the memories I'm the most fond of in working with him is when we've got those, doesn't happen often, but there's a few interviews that are just breaking the mold, and they're not asking the same question. Don't get me wrong. I know why media are often asking the same questions, because you get little time with a driver. You just want to know, about the sessions, about what he's doing on track. But sometimes you get media that manage to ask him about something different. Is whether it's about like his motocross team, or the time he spent at home with his family. He's a huge family man, and then you really get like a different kind of Kimi coming through. He's talkative. He's got an incredible sense of humor, which is something that sometimes doesn't come through in the regular interviews. And he's just like a very, very engaging character. And to see him smile as he recounts anecdotes from his life away from the track is just an incredible way to experience Kimi. He's been a revelation since I worked with him.
I can imagine, and I know that he's probably the most legendary world champion driver you worked with, because back in Force India, of course, we had a lot of younger talent. We had the likes of Paul de Resta, Adrian Sutil, Hulkenberg, Checo, even Esteban Ocon. I'm sure you've worked with all these drivers, but I guess the charisma that Kimi stands out with is something very different and very appealing to fans globally, right? That's something that just sticks with him wherever he goes.
I think you're right there. I mean, not to take anything away from the drivers in the past. You got somebody like Sergio Perez. The following he has, especially in Mexico, is something incredible. He's got a fan base of an incredible scale. Wherever you go, wherever race you are, in whichever corner of the world you are, you can be sure there will be people with banners, people with shirts, people, chanting his name. He's just a superstar on a different scale. And I think, his persona, his charisma, it's all that contributed to creating like this incredible character that people love so much. And it's a privilege to be able to be a bit of a part of that story.
I can imagine. And the one thing I'm going to keep chasing you is to try and get Kimi on the show at some point. And then hopefully we can, try and extract some of the humor. I know he's probably the busiest driver when it comes to the number of media requests you get. So I can totally imagine, how swamped he must be time and again. But
I will definitely try.
oh, thank you. That's kind of you. I have you on record. Not that, I would have believed you otherwise. But, how is it for you to work in Formula One? It's been, I know you spent about 6.5 years at Force India. That's when we first met. And now, you're building forward your career with Alfa Romeo. It's been almost 8 odd years since you've been in the paddock. How is it to work in Formula One for you?
I would say it's just like any other job, but I'd be lying. It is not, and yes, it does become like a job. You wake up in the morning, and sometimes you rather stay in bed or just enjoy a day with your family. But at the same time, sometimes I have to take a step back and realize like how incredible it is to be able to be in this world, which I dreamt since I was a child. Some of my first memories growing up, I must have been like 3, so back in a time when TVs was a lot grainier, out of me like, watching Formula One races or, trying to collect little model cars and racing them, age like 3 or 4. And I've always wanted to be in this world and to be able to be now nearly a decade in this world, like experiencing it, seeing the races, seeing behind the scenes, working in the factory. It's incredible. It's incredible. It does not get old. If anything, it gets even better because Formula One is a very complex sport. And it's not as intuitive, if you want, as any other sport that you can, turn on the TV and within 5 minutes, how everything is working, I mean, I was a football player, but yeah, football, you can put somebody who's never watched football in front of the TV and they sort of figure out that, it's about kicking the ball into the net and not just kick the ball in the arms. Formula One, yeah, you can enjoy just seeing cars going around and whoever gets first from A to B wins. But the more you know it, the more you know the intricacies on even not just the racing intricacies, about strategies, about engineering and so on, but even like the aspects that are away from the racing, like the logistics of getting the show up 22 times a year, every corner of the world. The more you know about this, the more fascinating it gets, and the more you're almost in awe about the people that make it happen. You're lucky enough to be working with some of the brightest minds, whether it's engineering, whether it's like mechanics, whether it's like pure science, possible on the planet. Surely, people that can be compared to scientists sending rockets into space in terms of the knowledge and the ability and the skills. And that part of the job is extremely gratifying. Sometimes it's a bit intimidating because you always, question yourself and you wonder whether you're good enough for the job. You look at all these people that speak like so many languages and got so many skills and PhDs and, but at the same time, it's really gratifying to know that you're there, you're all being your own, you're trying to do the best you can in this extremely fast-paced, extremely high-quality world. So it's great both from a personal point of view, because it's all what you always wanted to do, but it's also great from a professional point of view because it's really challenging you every day. And you know it, you've been in it as well. The same rivalry that teams have on track, we'll also have off track. And, some of my best friends in Swirler in the other press office and in the other teams. And we also challenge each other. We want to have the best press releases. We want to have the coolest content that we create. So it's really stimulating from that side because every day, even though the race weekends are similar to each other, but every day is a new challenge. You hardly ever get bored in this job.
Yeah, and I think the way you explained it was very good, especially with the whole personal and professional gratification that, you'd go back with, despite knowing you're going to do the same thing 22 times a year and the likes. And you mentioned, you were watching Formula One since you were 3 years old. And did you ever have the aspirations to become a racer, or did you always want to get into the management side of things in the sport?
No, I think my journey has been taking different directions. So obviously, when you're little, you want to be the guy behind the wheel. I desperately wanted to be a Formula One driver. I remember arranging the chairs in my bedroom to look like a Formula One car, and I would be sitting in there. And it was even before I had video games about it, and I just wanted to be a racer. Then, obviously the reality kicks in. I think even before the money, I was probably lacking the talent to make any inroad in motorsport as a racer. So, I still wanted to be part of this world. I considered, studying to become an engineer. Then realized that, I was dealing with words a lot better than I was dealing with numbers. So I sort of adjusted my aim, working as a journalist or working in a press office. And I think, touching on what I was saying before, everybody in this world is so skilled. You need to harness the best of your capabilities if you want to, make it in here. And for me, I don't want to blow my own trumpet here, but I think what I'm doing is what I'm best at, and I definitely would not be a great engineer, and definitely would not be a great driver. So.
No, I can so relate to a lot of these stories, given that we spent so much time together at Force India, and but the one question that I've been asked all the time, okay, how is it to work on weekends? Is that something that's bothered you? They keep asking, how are you managing family time, and what do you do on weekdays and the likes? But I'm sure for you, weekends is just very normal if you go racing, right?
Yeah, and to be honest, I used to be a footballer, and I used to do sports since I was 5 years old. So for the weekends were always something, some days in which we were doing something, whether you're playing football or going to a competition, or the moment I started working, even since I was 16, I was working in sport events. And then, it's Saturday and Sunday, you're on some athletics field or on a pool, or, you're working. So obviously there was never the scale of what a Formula One championship is going to be. But yeah, it becomes your new normal. Obviously things change as your life progresses. Stuff that you were doing, say, when you were single and you had all the time in the world, changes once start getting a family. I had a baby a year ago, so now the perspective that you have on life and everything changes a lot. The way you're looking at the time you spend away, you feel in a different way. And thank heavens for FaceTime, because that sort of allows you to still be in touch with your family. But it's not the easiest part. And while on the one hand, I love traveling, I love going to new places and getting to see new venues, and the part of the work we do trackside is extremely gratifying, because it's fast-paced, it's exciting, it's energetic. At the same time, it comes with a few downsides, which is all the time you spend away from home, from the people you love.
I can imagine, a cramped calendar in 2020 means you've spent 3 weeks away from home and from your family just to sort of keep doing what you love to do, and, delivering a great spectacle for all of us. So hats off to all you guys. I did that for a very little time, but the fact is you guys have been doing it now, like you said, almost in your 10th year in Formula One. But, one of the things that has always come across is, for people who want to work in Formula One, they keep wondering, what did you do actually before Formula One that you sort of became eligible for the Formula One job. So can you touch upon what were you actually doing before you built your profile and you sort of made yourself so interesting that you were hired at Force India?
Well, I think I went for a fairly regular path for most people. I went to uni. I knew sort of what I wanted to be. I wanted to be a journalist. I wanted to work in media. So I studied communication, and then I went on to have an MA in international journalism. So obviously my qualifications, my education was aiming a job in this level, but it's not by any means necessary. I know plenty of people that go here through different ways. And I cannot speak for engineers or so, because obviously that you need some very specific skills in this special courses. But for me, there was nothing in my education that specifically said motorsport. There was a huge passion. There was the never missing an F1 race on TV. There was trying to go and see testing, go see races when possible. But there was nothing specific in my education to say, oh, the guy is going to go work in motorsport. And the beginning of my career in sport was not with motorsport. I love sports since I was tiny. I just loved the experience. So as early as when I was 16, I was working in summers. I come originally from Milan in Italy, and plenty of sport events that took place there. And I remember my first major sport event was the canoe and kayak World Championships that were in my city. I mean, I had no experience about the sport whatsoever, but just the atmosphere and the way that just the events were run was so thrilling and so engaging and so addictive that I got out of that 3 weeks working at that event and was like, this is what I want to do for life. I want to be a sport event. I want to be in this world. And the way I know is to do media, to do journalism, to do reporting, to do media ops. So yeah, once I finally finished my education, that's what I was looking for a job in. At first I did, the best thing and the main recommendation that I would have for everybody is try to get some experience, because unfortunately demand and supply is a problem. There's a lot of people that want to be in this world, and there's nowhere near enough jobs. So what can set you apart is having the experience, some experience. A lot of the people would be entry level. So if you have something more, and for me that was volunteering in sports federations and trying to get a job there just to get some experience. Writing press releases, running media operations at events. I started in Wales with gymnastics. I like the sport of gymnastics, but I cannot say that I was an expert. But you so long as you're a skill writer and you're willing to put the effort, you can learn about it and you can sort of find a way. From there, I moved into track and field athletics, still with the Welsh Federation, working also with the UK Federation, and from there things took sped up a little, because obviously the Olympics in 2012 were coming to London. So there was a lot of attention and investment in sport in the UK. I came to India for the Commonwealth Games with the Welsh team. So it's all that experience that you get at major events, dealing with the media, dealing with teams that are hugely transferable skills. The fact that you're dealing with an athlete that just ran 100 meters or a gymnast who just finished their rotation at an even bars, doesn't matter really. So long as you know what you're doing and how to approach a sportsman, you can move from one sport to the other. So this is all about my experience. And then, very prosaically, I saw an ad on Autosport saying that Force India was looking for somebody to work in the press office. And, actually it was a friend of mine who sent me the link and said, like, well, isn't this what you do? I mean, you love Formula One. Why don't you do this? And I jumped on it. I went there. I was over the moon just with getting an interview. I got to see the factory. I got to see the cars, and I was trying my best not to look too starry-eyed and child in a candy shop kind of look, because I wanted, to show that, what, I'm a professional. I know how to do this job. I don't just want to do it because I'm a huge fan, even though I was a huge fan. And yeah, this is how it started. And, it was back in 2012 that I went for my interviews. It was late in the year, October, November. And I remember I was working in Qatar at the time. And I just landed at Doha airport, and I just got off the airport. I was in a taxi, and I got the call from HR for India saying that I got the job, and when can you start? And I said, just give me time to book some tickets, and I can do this. And it was something I never ever expected in my wildest dreams.
I'm so glad, you've taken your time to explain this, because it's so important to not just think Formula One, and, every time I get a query, I keep telling people what you just said. Build onto your transferable skills, whether you work with a sports person in a different sport, or with a brand or a sponsor that's completely, in a different regard, within the sports environment, it doesn't matter. Because, eventually building onto your skills, building onto your experience, and then sort of making sure that when and if an opportunity comes, and like you said, the demand and supply is extremely skewed in the world of Formula One. So when the opportunity comes, you sort of at least have the basic prerequisites to turn around and say, hey, I know my job. I've done this with several other sports, and I'm really good at it, and I'm a big fan. And can I go and do the same thing for a Formula One team? So I must thank you for explaining it in such great detail. And when you were explaining the whole episode of your landing in Qatar and then getting a call, it just reminded me of the same situation that I had. When I had my first couple of rounds of interviews, for Force India. And it was so easy to get very sporting about the conversation, because that's what we do as fans, right? We'll talk cars, we'll talk overtakes, but then suddenly you have to put on a different hat where you think of the sport as a business. And, that's another important quality that people need to have, when they are looking to work in a sports team or within any sport for that matter, that you stop being a fan and then you put on, this management or marketing or communications hat. So it's very well explained. And I must, thank you one more time for doing that, because anytime somebody asks me this, I'll say, go hear what Will P had to say. It's very well said. But moving on to a race weekend, and you've had several of these in your career. What's the one highlight for you usually on a race weekend, or what's the one moment that you are waiting for to happen almost every weekend?
And it's funny you ask this, because most of the stuff I will be doing and the stuff I look forward to the most is before even more, most of the people following a race weekend will even turn on their TVs. Because for me personally, the biggest day of a race weekend is Thursday. It's media day. That's where most of my effort go for the rest of the weekend. I always like to joke that when the cars hit the track on Friday for the first practice session, I can chill back and relax. Because Thursday is an extremely busy day. The run up to it is hectic, because we have to plan all the schedules for the whole weekend. We have to plan which interviews are going to take in place and where, and what they're going to talk about. Not just the drivers, but also deal with the media for the team principal, for the technical director, all other senior personnel in the track. We plan everything, we organize everything, we talk with the media to get engaged. And then when we finally get to the track on Thursday, it's a matter of briefing the drivers on how the day is going to look like, what are the big topics that they're likely to receive questions on, preparing them so that they don't feel at ease during even an interview, and just then relentlessly going through this very, very packed schedule in between an engineering meeting and the others, because we always have to balance the needs of the media side with the fact that they have to prepare a race weekend, and the engineers need time from them. They got to prepare the plan for the weekend, and then it's pretty much from on a Thursday, on a regular weekend, we hit the track at 8 in the morning, we leave at 11 p.m., and I'm pretty much being on my feet all the time, just running around, organizing, making sure that all the things we have in our schedules are taken care of. So that is definitely the highlight of the day. Whenever you see interviews with the drivers on Friday or on Saturday or in the run-up to the race, that are usually the result of all the work we've done on Thursday with the media to prepare this content. So, that highlights more from someone who's extremely passionate about the sport in the rest of the weekend. Seeing the cars go out on the track on Friday when we went to Austria for the first race of the season, it was incredible, because especially with all the weight, and it felt even more like finally we're back and we're racing. So you see the car go out and something switches in your brain and you really get into season mode. The race, the start, the finish, the media pen afterwards, when we have interviews after qualifying the race, those are very high tension moments, and the feeling that you have when you go through those and everything is going to plan is a massive, incredible feeling. But yeah, my personal highlights is getting a Thursday well done without major problems. Everything's gone to plan. Drivers are happy, media are happy, team principal is happy. There's all you can ask, really.
I have to share this with our listeners. I have been involved in what Wilby is talking about, creating the one A4 page schedule which everyone lives by for pretty much the Thursday. And it's the most comprehensive A4 you can actually find. And I'm sure you'll agree with me on this. It'll tell you who's going to be there, at what time, where is it going to happen, who are you going to meet, and most importantly, I used to love this part, what are you supposed to wear at that point?
Exactly, I was going to say that.
And this it's about removing any possible questions about what's going to happen on that particular Thursday. And I must tell you, I used to love that format so much that after I left Force India and I joined Star Sports, the broadcasting channel, to work on the Kabaddi League, that was the one thing I implemented there, which is how do you get the perfect schedule out so everyone knows what their role is at what time. So, I can totally imagine how much fun it is when you just manage to get all of that right in the first instance.
No, it's absolutely, it's a hugely rewarding feeling. And I have to say, it's definitely not a one person's job. Yeah. There's so many people that have input in this in this schedule, from the engineers with their engineering plans, marketing, media, even logistics with travel plans. When are the drivers landing? Are we going to have all the personnel? It takes a degree of coordination with the other teams, because while our drivers are a scarce resource with a limited amount of time, so are media. You may have one broadcaster, it still has to cover 20 drivers and 10 teams. So you really it's almost like a game of Tetris, trying to fit everything that fits the drivers, the team, the broadcasters, the other teams. It's a monumental effort, and there's a lot of thought and attention that goes into that. So again, it's one of the reasons why once you get to a nice Thursday and everything's gone well, you really can pat yourself on the back. Know that the job is not over, but at least you know that the big one's out of the way.
Yeah, I think the Tetris reference is very interesting, because I was just thinking back that you almost never hear a no when a request is sent out. Teams are always trying to figure, how do you make sure you give a 10-minute slot or a 5-minute slot to pretty much get all the media requests through to the weekend. And I'm sure all of this comes with a lot of intricate planning that, happens, like you said, way before you actually reach the Grand Prix weekend, and especially on the Thursday. But then this leads me to a very opposite question. What's your most boring part during a Grand Prix weekend? Or is there even a boring part?
It's very hard to tell. It's very hard to tell one boring part of the weekend. I don't think there is actually one. There's obviously there's some stuff you have to do that is not the most enjoyable, and in the end it's still a job. You still have to do it. I mean, you want to make sure, for example, that all the branding is in place. It's not something that really set the world on fire, but still it's an important job and you need to do it. That's probably the hardest question you got me so far. I wouldn't say there's anything really boring.
Okay, so I'm
sometimes the flying to and fro.
Where thankfully you're just seated or asleep and somebody's doing the job of taking you through. But what is the most annoying question that media keeps asking you time and again, just so that I know not to cross you the wrong way the next time?
I don't think, there's obviously some topics that sometimes you don't want to talk about. You can't ignore it. If people keep asking, it's because it's an important topic and you have to face it. I'm sure that, I've been through experiences in the past, not naming names, but, in which there were like tension between the drivers, and obviously that becomes a big story. People want to talk about it, and it's not something you want to talk about, but you can't do much about it. You have to bite the bullet, and as a professional, you want your team to be as prepared as possible to answer that question in the best possible way. So you prepare briefing, you prepare information about how the media has covered that question, the specific topic until then. So all you can do in that case is try to prepare whoever's getting that question in the best possible way. You also have to sometimes deal with the media and be honest with the media. Just as we try to be as open as possible, they have to stick with the topics that really. If you're asking me an interview to talk about, the next couple of races, I'm not vetoing any question because it's your right to ask questions. But I want you to, if you tell me is that you stick to that topic of the interview, you don't start talking about something that we hadn't agreed, or some topics that we maybe make people uncomfortable. But one of the positives in being in this sort of kind of closed world is that we build a relationship with the media, we build a relationship with everybody else. So we know we have to work with each other for a very long time and for the foreseeable future. So there's a huge amount of respect. We try not to cross any boundaries, not to act in an unfair way with anybody, and everybody sort of lives by these unspoken or unwritten code of conduct, which is one of the beautiful things of this world. I think in so many years, I cannot point out a single time in which somebody broke this covenant.
That's actually true, because it's such a close-knit community after all, and I'm sure it's built on a lot of respect and a lot of mutual understanding. And I wouldn't be surprised if some of your toughest times being a media and communications officer came, just before, when Force India was, in the problems that it was before it became Racing Point and the likes. And, those situations are probably the toughest. But this, of course, takes me back to all the lovely memories we've shared. at Force India, whether it was to do with the new website, we launched, or the social media we were handling, or the fun moped rides, with the drivers at the British Grand Prix.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
I should play this clip for Nishreen and ask her what her memories were back then. But no, it's exciting times. And, the one thing I haven't experienced, of course, is working in Formula One, especially with a team after it changed, ownership from Bernie Ecclestone to Liberty Media. And do you see a starking difference, differences that you can, sort of play? You have much more of a playing field now, given how Liberty Media has approached the whole, the business with such a science?
Obviously, I'm talking from a communication point of view, not wanting to take anything away from previous ownership, who did so much to grow Formula One into a global sport, into every corner of the world, and creating great stars of the drivers and the teams themselves. I think there's a lot more of a focus on media and communication since the new ownership. One of the things we felt is a lot more openness to ideas, also coming from the team, so bottoms up. So from that perspective, it's very exciting because, if you've got a nice idea, they will be there to listen to you, to maybe help you, because they know that, teams communicating to the world eventually result in a stronger sport altogether. It's not a zero-sum game. It's not because I'm doing great communication that damages the sport or damages other teams. In the end, if we all work together, if we all promote the sport individually and as a whole, then Formula One, grows in profile and it becomes a sport that people really, really engage with.
Yeah, and I'm sure the one big difference that we've all seen is how the embracing of social media and the magic it can do for the sport. And are you usually the guy who ends up doing most of the tweets, all the fun stuff on the Alfa Romeo Racing handle?
No longer. No. I've done it on the Force India handles for 6.5 years.
I remember. Yes.
I have now passed the baton on. There's an extremely skilled digital guy in the team here at Alfa Romeo Racing ORLEN, and he's doing a brilliant job. Lots of interesting content. I do miss it sometimes.
Yeah.
Because I had a great time doing it, and we really built a huge engaging platform for the fans from all over the world. Everybody was bringing something in. It was genuinely building relationship with fans that endure to this day. They became friends over time, just interacting with the team's accounts. Now I miss that part, but I've got plenty to keep me occupied in my other media duties. So it's crazy, but it's one of the best ways because to talk to the fans, because that is the one way they have to interact directly with the team, which in a sport like Formula One that goes all around the world, is not like a football team that's playing 20, 25 home games every season. So if you're local, you can go and see, you can experience it personally several times. In Formula One, you're lucky if a race comes to your country to start with. You're lucky if you can go to one race, even if you have to travel or so. So it's not a sport that has a direct point of access as easy as some of the other more like localized, if you want, sports. So the ability to interact so much on social media, to have social media accounts that actually listen to fans and interact with fans, it's massive. Before social media, if you could imagine like talking to a huge cricket star or a F1 driver or stars and their favorite teams is a huge thing.
True. I think there was a slight glitch in the matrix just when that happened, but it's great to have you back. And yeah, I agree. I think the personalities of say a Lewis Hamilton, a Max Verstappen, etc., have just been that much more accessible, that much more built, that much more aspiring. Given how they've embraced the social media platforms, and I keep thinking how much bigger would the legend of, say, Ayrton Senna and Michael Schumacher have been if social media sort of, existed back in their days. But, I think I need to thank you very much for a very open, honest, and an educational talk, Will. I've had several memories with you over our time together at Force India, and I'm pretty sure I'm going to see you at a race very soon, hopefully. I know I missed meeting you at Spa last year when you were shifting homes. But hopefully we are able to catch up over a cup of coffee at a race sometime soon.
We should do that. We should do it very soon.
Thanks so much for joining, and I will be in touch with you as I've always been.
Fantastic. Thank you for having me on the show.
Progressive presents an interview with your upstairs neighbor.
Hi, I'm Tia. The upstairs-downstairs neighbor dynamic is so special. We have our own language. Like when I scream at my mom on the phone, the people downstairs bang on the ceiling to show their support. The nighttime's the best time to rearrange furniture. I call it midnight feng shui. And if I sleep through my alarm in the morning, they bang on my door to wake me. So thoughtful.
Progressive can't save you from your upstairs neighbor, but we can save you money when you bundle renters and auto insurance with us. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company affiliates and other insurers. Bundle discount not available in all states or situations.